Good morning. So as promised, this morning we're doing the build of the front forks. So that's one of the fork lowers. I did build the other fork yesterday. Sometimes I just like to do one before videoing the other one, just in case there's anything particular that needs to happen that I might not be aware of before starting it. So anyway, I've cleaned up all the parts. The first job with this is, and this is one of those moments, you see, because is to knock the seals in. So conventionally, what you would often do is you put the fork together, and once the fork tube goes inside, you then knock the fork seal down the tube. But with these forks, we need to put the seals in to the fork leg first, and then the fork tube goes in kind of last, really. So we're rebuilding the whole thing before doing that. So I'm going to use a socket and a hammer to drive the oil seal in first. Let's just reposition this so you can see. Let's get I had a block of plastic yesterday. There we go. So block of plastic first. So I'm going to use that to start driving this in. And that didn't drive in straight, so just start that again. There we go. Then on this fork we also have, so that's the oil seal in there, we also have this dust seal which goes on the top, which we have a bigger socket for. No, that's not big enough, that one. Okay, so I can't remember what I used yesterday for this particular bit, but I'll just go and find something. Okay, so for this I'm going to drive it down from the bottom. So I've got a plate which I use on my press, which has got some holes in it. That hole is big enough, and it's got some space at the other end, and then I'm going to stick my piece of plastic on there. And then that's all driven in perfect. That's all good. So then we have the fork base, which has a rubber seal on it, which I'm replacing with an O-ring. go. And then what we need to do is the fork tube. Inside the fork tube there is a recess for a circlip, and there's like a little bushing mechanism which lives in there, which comprises of this little steel bush, and this little steel clip, which these items push into the base of the fork, and then we use the internal circlip there to hold them in place. There we go, that's all clicked into place, so that's all good. And then, so that's the damper rod there, that drops through the fork tube, and it should come out at the bottom. There we go. Then what we're going to do, so the fork bottom here, we're going to clamp that into the vise. And we're going to push the fork tube through from the top. Okay, like this, and then the damper rod fits into the fork bottom like that, and then we're going to use our new bolt and washer, which was just here a minute ago. There we go. New bolt and copper washer, which screws up through the fork bottom into the damper rod and tightens up. Once that's all tightened up, we can then screw the fork leg down onto the fork base. Nice forks to work on these actually. Good that the bottom comes off so easily. You can get to all the components. Okay, so actually this stage now is where we would fill the fork with oil, and I'll do that in a second. I mentioned when I stripped the forks down, these were the original fork caps, and I mentioned that I had a box of other fork bits and I was going to identify some better fork caps. So these are the ones that I've used. So they're made by a company called Otto's Works from Paramount, California. And these are a nice set of fork caps, I think. These would have been expensive. And they have the little Schrader valve in the side. Now, these were the original Schrader valves. I've replaced those with a new set. The only thing that I would like really would be a nice little stainless steel cap to go on there rather than the little plastic one. So I wrapped them in PTFE before putting them in there, and then, but these obviously won't go through the triple clamp, so these will have to go on last. So I'll just find out the oil level measurement for these forks, and then we can get them filled with oil, and then we can get them into the bike, put the springs in, and put the fork caps on, and then that's a good job. And then I've got the nasty job of building some wheels, which I'm not particularly good at, but there we go. So the oil level that we're going for is 120 millimeters. So that measurement is 120 millimeters of air gap at the top of the fork here, when the fork is completely compressed, as it is now, and with no spring in. Now then, we do need to cycle the oil up and down, so that it's filling all of the gaps of the damper rod and stuff like that. I mean, there's not a huge amount of space for the oil to not get into, but the way we do this is basically we fill the fork and then compress and decompress it a few times. You can hear that as that goes up, the oil sloshing around there. And then if I stick my hand over the top, that kind of forces it through. I mean, it's not as bad as a modern set of like cartridge forks or anything like that, but there can still be some spaces that the oil hasn't got to. Right, let's see where we're up to with that level there. Not enough. The gap of 120 millimeters is actually the most common gap that I see, especially on the older stuff. There we go, we're done. What I'll do now, just for the time being, is I'll stick that fork cap on there. Just so I can lay the fork down really. I can fill the other fork up and I can move the bike around and get these forks installed in the bike. That'll be good. Okay, so here's a bit of a disappointment. So I just rebuilt this fork, as you saw, and put it down while I built the other one, and I've come back to it, and there was some oil underneath it, and I thought to myself, oh, I hope my O-ring isn't leaking or anything like that. So I wiped it away. Anyway, on closer inspection, you probably won't be able to see. You can see where the oil is here. There's a tiny, tiny little hole here. Now, that is something that someone would be able to weld up. Probably for me, the best thing to do, I've got some other fork legs upstairs, would be to get a fresh set of seals. Probably the dust seal at the top will be all right, but certainly the oil seal won't, and just build it into another leg, and then take it from there, because that's a bit annoying, really. Yeah, I hadn't expected that. Anyway, joys of restoring vintage bikes. So disappointingly, the right hand side fork's gonna have to come back out because of the leak in the fork leg. But I have another fork leg which I can clean up and get rebuilt, and then I've just ordered the oil seals, so shouldn't be too much of an issue. It's just lovely to see a set of forks back in it. So I'm going to crack on with the wheel, front wheel now, and then hopefully get that done today. And I'm not gonna jinx myself by saying hopefully the back wheel as well. So that's a good do, other than the fork leg leaking. But there you go, it's not the end of the world, really. Please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just search Phoenix Motos.